Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. In today's video, I'm doing some primitive Christmas decor. To begin, I'm going to sketch out my pattern. I am going to be doing a large candy cane and I'm just going to sketch that out in pencil on a piece of art paper. Now, obviously, if you wanted, you could find an image that you liked online and you could print it out. There's probably even patterns for this, but I just decided to sketch this freehand so that it was exactly the right size that I wanted. Once I have my image ready, I'm going to trim it out. Next, I'm going to be using my pattern on top of some drop cloth. I'm going to trace around my pattern with a lead pencil, and this is going to be going on the back side of our candy cane, so it's not going to be the main focus of our design, but I still wanted it to have that primitive, tidy look. So I'm now going to follow my lead pencil lines and cut out my candy cane shape. I did leave a little bit of extra space around the outside of my design because we are going to be gluing these pieces together, and I want to make sure that I have the right amount of space for the hobby fill that we're going to be putting in there later. Next, I am going to be using my same pattern that I created over the top of this lovely ticking fabric. I got this from Spotlight Australia. I will link it in the description below. I'm just going to cut out a rough piece of fabric to the size that I need, and now here you can see I'm using a lead pencil to trace around the design. I'm then going to use my scissors to cut out the candy cane shape, and again I have left a little bit of excess fabric. I'm then going to be using my hot glue gun to glue these pieces together. So I'm putting a thin line of glue and then I am pushing the two pieces of fabric together. So I am going to be using hot glue for this. This is a no-sew project. If you wanted, you could definitely still do stitches if you wanted, but I'm going for a very primitive look. I wanted this to be easy so that anyone could do it. So you can see I'm just adding that glue, but I am going to be leaving a space for the hobby fill to go in at the top part of our candy cane and the bottom part as well, just to make life a little bit easier when I'm trying to get that fill all the way to the top. So I'm going to continue adding that glue until I have the two pieces glued together. Once I have the two pieces glued together, I'm going to start adding my hobby fill. I'm going to be just pushing it in, and then to get it a little bit further along, I'm using the end of a pencil to push it in further. And I'm going to continue adding this until I have the whole thing filled. And again, this is going to be to your liking. As you can see, we have a lovely rustic sort of edge happening here. Again, if this wasn't to your liking, you could stitch it. It's just going to be whatever style you're going for. I love this red ticking fabric. I think it is absolutely perfect for Christmas, perfect for the candy cane, but you could go a little bit more neutral if you wanted, and you could just use the drop cloth instead. Next, you can see I'm using my hot glue gun to glue together the two ends of the candy cane now that I have enough hobby fill in there. Just make sure you're being really careful here. It is very easy to burn yourself with a hot glue gun, so just take your time. Once I have both of the ends glued together, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim off any excess fabric. I do want a frayed edge here, but I don't want too much excess. Once I've done that, I'm going to be taking a sandpaper block of 220 grit and I'm going to go around the edges and further fray and distress them. If there's any super long bits of fraying, I am going to trim those back a little bit. Now you could definitely stop here if you're going to be trying this at home, but I want to add a bow. So I'm going to take my drop cloth and I'm going to be tearing off the seam that's around the edge of the drop cloth. So I've cut a little bit and now I'm tearing it away, and this is going to be our bow. So I'm going to be creating two loops and then I'm going to tie those together. And I just love the primitive look of this. So I'm just adjusting how big each of those little loops are, and once I'm happy with that, I am going to move on to the labels. So I have these little cardboard labels here that I picked up from Kmart, I believe, here in Australia, and I'm just trimming it to size because I don't need it to be as big as that. I want it to be in the right scale. So once I have that organized, I'm going to take my permanent black ink and I'm using a stamp from IOD. It's called Merry and Bright. I'm tidying up any excess ink and then I'm going to press it down on my cardboard tag. This is just a nice little hint of text, not overwhelming. I just want it to be a very subtle look here. So once I've got that done, I'm going to use some twine. I'm going to thread it through the hole on our little label, and then I'm going to actually tie it around the candy cane itself and tie a little knot. Once I have that organized, I'm going to put some hot glue on the back of my bow and glue it down near our label. Now you could leave it here, but this still felt a little bit too new looking for me. So I'm going to take some Dixie dirt in the color Earth and I'm going to use my brush and just start adding it to the candy cane. I'm focusing on the edges. This is a pretty subtle look here. And again, you can leave this out if you want, but I want these to look primitive and old. So I'm going in somewhat heavy in some places, but you can see I'm able to wipe back some of that excess with just another piece of scrap fabric. So I'm going to continue adding that. And then I'm going to take my wax brush. This is my brown wax brush. I don't have any excess wax on this. I'm just using whatever residue is left there. And I'm just adding it to the label, the bow, the edges of the candy cane. And again, this is to your liking. You can leave this step out. And here's our finished primitive candy cane. I love how this turned out. It was a simple and easy craft, but very effective. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my next project, I'm going to be using some of the drop cloth scraps and also some of the ticking scraps, and I'm just sketching out another smaller candy cane. We're going to make a little primitive candy cane ornament. So I've sketched out my design. I'm then going to trim it out, and then once I have that organized, I'm going to use the drop cloth pattern to help me create the pattern for our ticking fabric. So you can see I'm just laying it over the top and then I'm going to trace around it. And then once I'm finished tracing around it, I will do the same as I did before. I will cut that out. Once I have my two pieces cut out, I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to start applying glue where I want the pieces of fabric to meet. So this is very similar to what we did for the first candy cane, just on a bit of a smaller scale. So again, I'm going to leave an opening at both ends of the candy cane to make it a bit easier for me to get that hobby fill into those tricky areas. Once I have the two pieces glued together, I'm going to start adding my hobby fill. This was a little bit trickier than the first one because we are dealing with a much smaller project. So I did take my time here and I had to have a little bit of patience trying to work that hobby fill into those small areas. Now something that I should have done is leave an opening at the top for our hanger. So I've heated up my hot glue using my hairdryer. I've pulled apart the top a little bit and then I'm just going to put some twine in there for the hanging attachment. I have done a little knot as you saw. I'm positioning it where I want it to go and I'm going to use some hot glue to attach it. So keep that in mind if you're going to do this. Just leave a little bit of a gap so that you can put that little hanging attachment in there. And once I've done that, I'm going to go around the edges and trim off any excess fabric. Once I've removed any excess fabric, I'm going to take that 220 grit block of sandpaper and lightly distress the edges. Once I'm finished distressing the edges, I'm going to take some drop cloth fabric that I've already torn up and I'm going to tie a simple bow by creating 2 loops and tying them together. I'm then adjusting each of the loops and then I'm working out here where I want it to go. And once I've worked out where I want it to go, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim off some of the excess from the ends of the bow there. And again, I like to do ripping where I can because it adds to that primitive feel. And then I'm going to use a hot glue gun to glue down the little bow in place. Once I had it in place, I did decide to further trim the ends of the bow just a little bit more. To give this more of a primitive rustic feel, I did take some more of that Dixie dirt in the color earth, and I'm just adding that around the edges of the candy cane, to the bow, just anywhere that I would like that age to show. If you don't have Dixie dirt, you could use some of Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in brown. I have also been using my wax brush here, as you can see, to go around the edges. That's definitely effective as well. Or perhaps you could do a tea stain on the ticking fabric before you use it. Next, I decided to add that sweet little Merry Christmas stamp from IOD to the end of the ribbon that we added just on the right hand side. And here's our finished candy cane ornament. I think this turned out really sweet. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. On to our final project today, and I've got some more drop cloth and I'm drawing out a triangle, a slim triangle just on the drop cloth there, and then I'm going to use my scissors to trim it out. And as you may have guessed, we are creating a Christmas tree. So once I have my drop cloth tree pattern, I'm going to position it over the top of the ticking fabric, and I'm just using that as a guide to cut out a area of the fabric. We don't need it to be the exact shape just yet. I'm just cutting out a rough area there, and then you can see here I'm trimming it to size. Next, just like in the first two projects, I'm going to use my hot glue gun to glue the sides together, and I'm going to be leaving the bottom section open so that we can add that hobby fill. If you're looking for other Christmas craft ideas, make sure you check out my Christmas playlist. I've got lots of ideas for the festive season. Once I have my two sides glued together, I'm just going to trim up the top and make that a little bit more pointed. Make sure I cut off any excess fabric. And then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to add some hobby fill. And this is actually just fill that I got from a cushion that I bought brand new from Kmart Australia. And now I'm going to use this lovely little wooden spool and this stick from my garden. And I'm going to be adding the stick into the base of the tree. I'm going to start gluing the sides of the bottom part of the tree together first so that there's a smaller opening for us to pop that stick in. So I'm just bringing the sides together, and then once I have that in place, I'm going to add that little stick, just making sure that I'm happy with the length and how it's going to sit in the spool. And then I'm adding some glue so that the stick stays inside of the tree. And you don't have to use a stick, you can use a dowel for this if you like. I just liked the primitive look that created. I'm then going to take my wax brush and I'm just adding some brown Best Dang wax to cover up those cuts that look a little bit fresher. We want this to look rustic. I did add, as you saw, a little bit of that wax to the bottom of the tree just to make it a bit easier to get to. I'm then going to add some hot glue to the spool where our little stick is going to go to attach our tree, and then I'm going to press the tree in. Once I've done that, I'm going to trim off any really long bits of cotton that are showing, and then I'm going to take my 220 grit sandpaper block to lightly distress the edges. I have this little bit of scrap fabric that I was already stamping with. I was doing some practice with, so I decided that I would use it. So I'm trimming it to size, fraying the edges, and then I'm going to be gluing that onto our tree. And it says Merry Christmas. You could definitely go for a different message here if you wanted. Finally, I decided that I would tear off some more drop cloth to create some ribbon that we're going to use to tie a little bow. So same as before, creating 2 loops, tying them together, adjusting the loop size until I'm happy with them, and then I'm going to use some hot glue to attach it to the base of the tree. And this is something you can leave out if you like, but I really like the look of a rustic bow. I'm going to trim off any excess fabric from the ends of the bow and make sure that I fray those edges. I'm then going to be using the wax brush again, and I'm adding that to the bow. So this is just going to add to that primitive feel. And then I'm also adding a little bit to the edges, and then I'm grabbing that Dixie dirt to add a little bit of that here and there as well. And here's our finished primitive Christmas tree. I love how this turned out. It is a really classic look, I think. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. I really hope that you've enjoyed today's primitive projects and that it's inspired you to get crafting for the season. Let me know if you had a favorite project from today. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find the products used today on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.